The show starts with Rory and her boyfriend John talking about their plans for the future. She is deeply in love with him and wonders if he loves her the same way. In response, he assures her that he will remain by her side forever. Rory then expresses her concerns about how his mother thinks that she is seducing him and distracting him from his studies. Cut to the next scene where Rory is at a cafe with her best friend and cafe owner, Mi-kyun. She seems pretty upset because Jian hasn't called her for the past 2 weeks, and it's the first time they haven't talked for this long. Mi-kyun believes that Jian has already broken up with Rory and moved on, but our girl reassures her that her boyfriend is not that kind of person and he loves her very much. Later, a restless Rory decides to visit her boyfriend's house. She comes across Jian's mother and brother at the door. When she asks about Jian's whereabouts, his mother breaks down completely. She sobbingly says that Jian is no longer in this world, and all of this is because of Rory. Our heroine is completely taken by surprise and refuses to believe what she just heard. But Jian's mother lashes out at her and labels her a killer. Later, Jian's brother explains the entire truth to Rory. Mom wanted Jian to take his police officer's test and focus on his studies. However, since he loved Rory, he wanted to give her an anniversary ring as a gift. Therefore, he had taken a part-time job as a food delivery person. One night while working, he got into an accident, due to which he sustained critical injuries. Jian did not die right away, but he went into a deadly coma, which rendered him unconscious for 2 weeks. When he showed no signs of improvement, the doctor and his family members reluctantly decided to take him off life support, leading to his demise. Now, Mom believes that if he hadn't been in a relationship with Rory, he would still be alive. Hearing all this, Rory is speechless, and she too starts blaming herself for the tragic accident. She then walks home alone, looking expressionless. At one point, she decides to do the unthinkable and join Jian in the afterlife. But thankfully, she doesn't do anything insane and simply returns home, drenched in tears. The following day, Mi-kyun learns about the unfortunate event and comes over to see her best friend, where she tells Rory not to blame herself for Jian's death. Mi-kyun also fixes Rory's otherwise dark and cluttered room. In the next scene, we are taken to a dance studio where a group of trainees are showcasing their talents. It's Han-sol, a talented YouTube singer's turn, but for some reason, he becomes excessively anxious while on stage. Han-sol seemingly has stage fright, and when he sees a girl in uniform, his fright worsens, causing him to faint on the stage. Later, his best friend Jun helps him off the stage and takes him outside. After regaining consciousness, Han-sol self-pities, wondering how he will be a singer if he continues to faint and vomit on the stage. In response, Jun mentions that he's given Han-sol's name for a community music performance in order to help him with his stage fright. However, Han-sol doesn't seem to be happy about this since he believes he can't perform well. Meanwhile, Rory once again has terrible thoughts, and she decides to end it all in her room. She sets up everything meticulously and proceeds with the act. But even this time, fate doesn't let her die as the rope snaps. Feeling helpless, Rory then starts wailing and shouting profusely. At the same time, Han-sol, who has just returned from his training, wonders who must be crying so loudly. Turns out that Han-sol and Rory are next-door neighbors, but have not met each other. As days pass by, Rory continues to lock herself inside her room and wallow in sadness. Unable to sleep one night, she finally goes outside to stroll around the park. There, she sees Han-sol singing a song while playing his guitar. Seeing him, Rory starts to cry and remembers how she and Jian used to love Han-sol's YouTube videos and watch them together. Meanwhile, Han-sol continues to sing and learns he's actually making the girl feel better. Later, when Rory returns home, she realizes that she just cried in front of a stranger, while Han-sol cheers in happiness, realizing that he could sing in front of a complete stranger. Rory then goes through her notebook, which contains a bucket list that she and Jian made together. Reading through its pages, the notebook inspires her to keep living. Rory then decides to complete every item on the list. The first one is watching a musical show at a local theater. So the following day, Rory gets a ticket for the show, but is unable to go alone. She doesn't have the strength to complete the list and sadly returns home. Meanwhile, Han-sol continues to faint while performing, so he also lacks the courage to face his fears. Later, the two cross paths once again when Han-sol sees Rory sitting alone in the same park where they met the other night. He strikes up a conversation, and she compliments his singing talents. She tells him that the other night, his singing really made her feel something she had not felt in a long time. He says he can sing for her again, and she happily says she can listen to him repeatedly. This gives him the much-needed confidence, and he ends up singing fluently in front of her. The following day at work, Han-sol's performance seems to have improved. Initially, he starts to imagine Rory in front of him and sings confidently. But then he sees the same girl in uniform, which makes him very anxious. As a result, poor Han-sol faints on the stage once again. The studio manager later summons him and decides to find a solution to his stage fright. She says she believes in his exceptional talent, but he has to be more confident. She then forces him to watch a musical show, the same one Rory had been planning to tick off her bucket list. The next day, Rory and Han-sol meet once again by chance. Both of them confirm to each other that they had met in the park last time. Our girl inquires if he's a regular attendee there, but he reveals that it's his first time. Rory then asks him to accompany her, as she had already bought 2 tickets, which were meant for her and her supposedly dead boyfriend, John. Although nervous, he agrees on the condition that she buy him dinner later. Meanwhile, Mi-kyung goes to Rory's apartment to check up on her. At the same time, Ha-jun is also at Han-sol's apartment, knocking at his door. Their first meeting doesn't seem to go very well. Ha-jun tells Mi-kyung to lower her voice, calling her an aunt. This obviously annoys her, prompting her to have a go at him. The two then start to denounce each other until a tenant kicks them out for making such a noise. After this, they apologize and go their separate ways. Back at the theater, Rory starts to tear up again while watching the musical. Clueless, Han-sol helps her out with some tissues. After the show, Rory decides to leave, but Han-sol reminds her of the promised dinner. She reluctantly treats him to some barbecue chicken and soju. Sadly, Rory once again remembers the times she and Jian used to eat out together. Han-sol tries his best to snap her out of it by asking about her age. Rory says that she's 25, and Han-sol jumps in excitement, saying that he's the same age as she is. The two then formally introduce themselves to one another. Han-sol asks Rory if she can come watch him play at the street festival this weekend, to which our girl gladly agrees. The following day, when Mi-kyung learns about the bucket list, she reasonably tells Rory to forget about it. She believes it will only make it more difficult for her to let go of her past and move on. However, Rory is hell-bent on completing the list and assures her friend that time will heal everything. She then asks Mi-kyung if she's free to watch a street performance on Sunday. The latter gladly agrees, as she wants to help her friend out. In the next scene, we are taken to Sunday, and Han-sol seems to be pretty nervous about his performance. He waits for Rory to come because for some reason, he can sing really well when she is around. Unfortunately, he's called upon the stage early. Fretting, he holds the mic and searches for our girl in the audience. When he doesn't find her, he hints to the organizers not to start the music just yet, but his words fall on deaf ears. Han-sol is forced to sing, as his fans are also clamoring for his much-awaited stage performance. Left with no choice, he starts off slowly, but instantly catches his rhythm when he sees Rory in the audience. Han-sol then gives quite a performance, singing his heart out confidently. Suddenly, Rory gets a phone call and heads to a quieter place. This makes Han-sol lose his balance and he starts shivering in fear. Sadly, he ends up vomiting on the stage while Ha-jun helps him out. Meanwhile, Rory is on the phone with Mi-kyung, who apologizes for not making it to the festival. The latter is instead caught up in watching her favorite artist, a masked singer, live on YouTube. After a while, Rory goes back to the festival, only to find Han-sol in such a pitiful state. The two later chat outside, where he reveals that he feels dizzy when standing on the stage. Rory points out that he sang very well the last time they were in the park. Han-sol then claims he can only sing a little in front of the public, and it's bizarre that she can calm him down. He had actually called her here to test whether or not he could sing when she was around, and it turned out to be great until she went outside for the phone call. Hearing all this, Rory is shocked, but she also understands his situation. She agrees to attend his every performance on the condition that he helps her in ticking off the bucket list. Han-sol gladly accepts, and the two make a promise to help each other out. The following day, Rory tells Mi-kyung about the deal, and she compliments her best friend's progress. She notes that things like this happen for a reason, and that Rory and Han-sol are, in fact, brought together by destiny. Rory says that she's just in some sort of exchange agreement with him, and no feelings will be involved. Whatever the situation, Mi-kyung notes that she's super happy because Rory is finally going out and enjoying herself. At the same time, Han-sol shares his side of the story with his best friend Ha-jun, and the latter, of course, teases him. Later, Han-sol is approached by another trainee who apparently has a crush on him. She compliments his performance from the other day and wishes to learn his singing skills. Han-sol is thankful and wishes her luck for her next audition. Our hero later catches his friend Ha-jun secretly watching a video. Han-sol teases him for publicly watching erotic stuff, but Ha-jun assures him that he is only watching a YouTube video. He then shows him the video, which is of a masked singer. It turns out that Ha-jun is actually the masked singer, and Mi-kyung is his #1 fan. However, since both of them use aliases online, they don't know each other's real identities. Just then, Han-sol gets a call from Rory, asking him to meet her immediately. This makes Ha-jun a bit sad, as he is not getting to spend quality time with his best friend these days. Ha-jun then goes to a cafe alone and orders a coffee. Much to his surprise, the cafe is owned by Mi-kyung. After their last encounter and fight, she immediately recognizes him and throws him out of the cafe. She is really mad about how he had addressed her as an aunt. In the meantime, Han-sol meets Rory as discussed over the phone. She pulls over in a fancy car, which she had rented for the day. In the next scene, the pair are seen enjoying a movie at a drive-in theater, another wish that Rory and Jian had mentioned on their bucket list. She is overjoyed, as it's her first time watching a movie at a drive-in theater. Meanwhile, Han Sol seems pretty caught up in her cuteness. Back at her cafe, Mi-young is busy watching a live video of her idol, the Masked Singer. She posts several comments supporting him and cheering for him. Meanwhile, Rory falls asleep in Han Sol's arms during the movie. Our hero wonders what she might be going through in her life. As the pair check off one item after another on the list, they experience unprecedented feelings for each other. Their shared understandings ease their pain, and they wonder if these new emotions can help keep them going despite their past tragedies. One day, Malin, the girl who has a crush on Han Sol, approaches him and tells him that she needs some advice. She admits to liking someone in their group without specifying his name. She then asks him whether she should confess her feelings or keep them to herself. Han Sol suggests that she do what makes her happy because they only live once. Malin then suddenly confesses her feelings for him. Shocked, Han Sol tells her that he doesn't like dating people from the same group or company. This devastates Malin, but she keeps a straight face and lies that she was only practicing to confess. After this, Han Sol is summoned to the manager's office. She praises him for his last performance, telling him that she has always believed in his talents. In the meantime, Rory and Mi-kyung are at a cafe, and our girl orders an iced Americano. Seeing this, Mi-kyung notes that Rory only drank iced Americano because of her boyfriend. He has been gone a long time now, but she is still lost in his memories. Mi-kyung then suggests that Rory stop living in the shadow of Jeon and start cherishing her own likes and dislikes. However, this annoys Rory a bit, so she leaves the cafe on the pretext of having an important meeting. Later, she meets with Han Sol and decides to take off another bucket list item, playing arcade games at a shopping mall. The pair then have a great time together playing various games at the arcade. Before calling it a day, they promise to call each other when they are in need. In the next scene, Rory heads for her apartment, but suddenly she sees a man who looks exactly like Jeon, but thinks maybe she's imagining it. She quickly follows him down the streets, only to find that he is just another passerby. Meanwhile, Han Sol arrives at his home, but his father mocks him as usual. The old man hates the fact that he has chosen a creative profession rather than a more technical one, which would land him a more secure job with handsome pay. Han Sol's mother tells her husband not to nag Han Sol today because it's the anniversary of their daughter's death. It turns out that Han Sol's sister died due to health conditions, and this incident has somehow led to his stage fright. As memories of his sister flash in front of his eyes, Han Sol feels suffocated, so he goes outside to get some fresh air. Just then, he sees Rory wandering around the streets and asks her why she isn't home yet. Rory also asks him why he's out again even after returning home. The next scene shows the pair hanging out in front of a cafe. Rory asks why Han Sol seems to be rather upset today. He says that it's just some boring family matters. However, Rory is curious this time, so she asks about what's happening in his life. Hesitantly, he starts sharing his story. A year ago, his sister had to undergo a simple operation. On the day of the operation, she had begged him to visit her so that he could sing for her. However, Han Sol couldn't do so because he had a performance that day. The next day, while he was performing a song, Ha-jun came rushing towards him and delivered the unfortunate news of his sister's sudden demise. Han Sol then hastily drove to the hospital and realized that his sister was gone forever, and what's worse, he never got to sing for her. Ever since then, he has been seeing his sister, the girl in the uniform, while performing, which is causing his stage anxiety. After hearing about his past, Rory assures him that it's not his fault. Han Sol admits to feeling guilty for not fulfilling his sister's wish. He says he just wishes to cry that guilt and pain away. In response, Rory tells him to go ahead because it also takes some courage to cry. Han Sol then becomes emotional and starts weeping like a child. Seeing him, Rory says to herself that she too has started to feel his sadness. And after talking for a while, the two part ways and plan to meet on the weekend. During the weekend, Han Sol and Rory, along with Ha-jun and Mi-kyung, go on a road trip to an island amusement park. Ha-jun and Mi-kyung continue to fight with each other while being completely unaware of their online personas. That evening, the group goes to a fancy restaurant. While enjoying their dinner, Rory suddenly spots Jeon's brother in the street. She quickly follows him and overhears him talking on the phone to his mom. On the phone, he tells her that he's going to Jeon's place. Rory is completely taken by surprise and wonders if she heard that right. She decides to follow him down the streets. Just as she's about to get hit by a car, Han Sol arrives at the right time and saves her. He then calms her down and asks what's the matter. Rory quickly explains the entire situation to him, claiming that Jeon is still alive. This slightly confuses Han Sol, but he decides to help her find him. Following this, the two head to the bakery where Rory had seen Jeon's brother. When they go inside and spot the owner of the place, Rory is shocked to the core. The person turns out to be none other than her supposed dead boyfriend. Jeon quickly approaches her and tries to explain, but our girl is having none of it. She storms out of the place in anger. Later, Rory expresses her frustration with Han Sol, complaining about how she had been wronged by Jeon and his family this whole time. She mourned for him day and night, only to discover that he's been alive this whole time. When they arrive at Rory's place, Han Sol encourages her to free herself from her past and her wrongdoings. This makes Rory emotional and she starts to cry, calling Jian trash. When she finally falls asleep, Han Sol is also relieved. He then sees the bucket list diary and goes through it. Rory suddenly awakes from her slumber and asks whether he's reading her diary. Han Sol admits to doing so and asks about their relationship. He wants to know if they will still be friends after she completes her bucket list. He even questions if she was planning to cut ties after that. Rory confirms his words by saying that the two are just taking advantage of each other and there is nothing between them. Her words obviously affect him because Han Sol had started to like her. He then takes off without saying a word. Rory feels terrible for acting out in front of Han Sol, so she decides to throw away her diary for good. While taking out her trash, Jian is waiting outside for her. He asks her to give him a chance to explain, but our heroine won't listen to him. Later that afternoon, Rory and Han Sol meet in the street. After they pass each other, Han Sol confesses his feelings for her. He tells her that he likes her. In fact, he's liked her from the very first day they met. Sadly for him, Rory doesn't even turn back and keeps on walking, ignoring him. Later, Han Sol tells Mi-kyung and Ha-jun about the incident. The two encourage him not to lose hope, assuring him that Rory definitely needs some time alone because of what she just discovered. In the meantime, Rory agrees to meet with Jian to hear him out. Wasting no time, he tells her he got into an accident and sustained minor injuries. His mother had promised to buy a shop for him under the condition that he fake his death. Jian thought the idea of a shop would be great because he could earn money and buy gifts for Rory once they patched up. However, she asserts that if he truly loved her, he would never have let her go through so much pain. Just then, Mi-kyung arrives at the scene and slanders Jian. She even pulls his ears as punishment for all his wrongdoings. Since Rory doesn't want to fall in love again and wants to be alone for now, she decides to leave the city and transfer to another one through her workplace. She talks to the manager and manages to transfer to another branch within the company. But love follows her to her new place as well. There she reunites with a school friend named Jin, who used to like her. Now that he knows she's single, Jin wants to approach Rory once again. In the meantime, after Rory leaves, Han Sol's stage anxiety worsens. Ha-jun helps him during practice while reminding him of his sister's wish, that she wanted him to be a superstar. Keeping this in mind, Han Sol practices tirelessly for his upcoming debut performance. Ha-jun also calls Mi-kyung and asks for her help in inviting Rory to see Han Sol's debut performance. On the other hand, Jin finally asks Rory out, confessing his everlasting love for her. Sadly for him, our heroine says that she's already in another relationship, assuring him that this one is stronger than the last one. In the next scene, the most important day for Han Sol arrives as he prepares for his grand debut. He walks on stage, more confident than ever. He then starts singing an original song dedicated to someone special, that is, Rory. The crowd starts cheering for him while he sings a rather heart-touching song. Rory also arrives just in time to see him perform. Tears fill up in her eyes when Han Sol dedicates the song to her. The final scene shows the pair finally mending their relationship. They tick off all the items on the bucket list, making for a happy ending.